Hey, and welcome to Grounded with Lindsay Portugal. Today, I am going to be going over the homeschool curriculum that we have chosen for the next year. And yes, it is early, but I am kind of that person and I wanted to get things kind of rolling and figure out what we're going to do next year, because it also kind of tells me how we need to wrap certain things up in the prior year. So let's just go into kind of the title of this video, which is we are switching back more to Memoria Press. So if you've been following this channel, you know that we never really left Memoria Press. But here's the thing. We have kind of deviated more in prior years, and then I've started to kind of inch my way back, which has caused a few missing holes and things like that. And I am trying to kind of patch those as we go, fill in gaps where we might have missed. And I will just kind of explain to you kind of how we're using Memoria Press. I continue to be very attracted to Memoria Press as a whole, as a curriculum. It's a very literature-based curriculum, which I love. I love the fact that every time you're reading, even if you're reading in the first grade level, you are reading real books, which is super important to me versus reading readers. I grew up reading readers as part of my curriculum, and it was not my favorite. And I feel like my kids actually reading real books is very important to me. But that being said, let me just dive right in, and we will start at 7th grade, which is where my oldest is going into. I will kind of fill in with 3rd grade and then 1st grade. And some of these later, obviously if you see my prior videos on what we've done before, they may just be a repeat. So, I have a whole box of curriculum in front of me. I am at my mom's house, and that is where we are living currently. So these are the only 2 bookshelves that I have, and they're pretty loaded up right now. And I am sitting on the floor in front of them because I don't have anywhere else to film. So let me get started. So one of the things that I'm really excited to try to do this year is we're actually going to take a summer break. We normally do not. We just kind of school year round. And this year, my daughter's going to a camp this summer. And I just needed a break. I need a 2-month break where we say we're just not doing school. And I'm going to do something that I listened to on Memoria Press. I guess it's like one of their podcasts or YouTube videos where they recommended you as the parent reading the books that the kid is going to read in the next year during that summer. And I always feel like I'm behind, or just having used the teacher guide to kind of be like, so for example, like this is one of their teacher guides, like The Adventures of Tom Sawyer. I have never read this book. There's a lot of books that I've read, but this is not one of them. And so if I don't read it, I'm going to have to heavily rely on the teacher guide to really make sure that the answers are correct if she writes them. And sometimes she does struggle with reading comprehension, fully understanding, especially like innuendo or what I would consider like foreshadowing, those kind of things. And so I want to make sure that I am going to read the book this year. That's my intent. And so I have all of the books that she's going to be reading this year, and I'm going to try to read them in the 2 months over the summer. I'm a relatively fast reader, so I'm hoping to attempt to do that. So that's one thing that I'm kind of changing this year. So instead of trying to kind of read along with her, which never happens because I'm trying to school 3 kids at the same time and it just becomes overwhelming, I'm going to try to get them read ahead of time so that I'm kind of ahead of the game. Not to mention it also allows me to read classic literature that maybe I obviously haven't read in the past. So like last year, so let's start with 7th grade. So 7th grade at Memoria Press, and I'm just going to go on their website here. They recommend a lot of things, which again, as I said, we are kind of deviating from some things. And as we come back to Memoria Press, we're going to have to fill in areas that we didn't. So we're not going to be able to just go, hey, we're buying the 7th grade kit. But let me just explain what we're doing. So we are not doing Latin, and we haven't done Latin in several years. So my daughter deviated from Latin early on. She wanted to do Greek, and we did elementary Greek level 1 in 4th grade, which is way before they recommend doing it, but I felt like she was ready. She really takes to languages very easily, and she did just fine in it. Grade 5, she did elementary Greek level 2, and then in 6th grade, we moved to first form Greek. Now, I will give you this warning if you are thinking about doing Greek. First form Greek, and I'm sure it's probably the same with first form Latin, is extremely intense. There is a lot in the workbook that you have to fill out every single day, and she kind of got exhausted from it. She's like filling out all the Greek letters. She knows the content. She's not missing anything, but it's just a lot of work. And so what we decided to do, since first form Greek is not something that you necessarily are supposed to start until like even 8th grade, I had her pause at the end of unit 3. And so unit 4 and 5, we will continue next year. So for the remainder of this year, she will continue to refresh her words and things like that so we don't lose anything. And then we will continue on next year, kind of spacing it out. And that is actually what Memoria Press does with, I believe it is their first form, it's their Latin Christiana. So Latin Christiana, yes, starts in 3rd grade. And so you will see that if you get their curriculum guide, you will see that Latin Christiana is split over 3rd and 4th grade. Now, my daughter had done it all in 1 year, my oldest daughter. However, my second daughter, not such a big fan of the languages, not so ready to just take on that challenge. And actually, I'll get to that when we talk about 3rd grade. But again, first form Greek was highly intense, and so we're just going to split it over 2 years, kind of like Memoria Press does with Latin Christiana. Now, the books that they recommend at Memoria Press for 7th grade are Anne of Green Gables, The Hobbit, The Bronze Bow, and The Trojan War. Well, this is our problem because last year in 5th grade, she read The Hobbit and then continued it over into the beginning part of 6th grade. So we've already read The Hobbit. And then this year she read Anne of Green Gables. She's actually currently reading Anne of Green Gables. So we have already done that. And that's the second time she's actually read it. So we've already done Anne of Green Gables. So we were left with only 2 books for Memoria Press's literature program, which I'm actually okay with. I do feel like, and one of the things that if you're coming into Memoria Press, you need to understand it is built kind of for a school setting. So there is going to be a lot of work to kind of fill that whole day of school. If you are a homeschooler, you might feel very overwhelmed. This is definitely not going to be your 2 to 3 hour school day. It is a very intense program, but I like that about it because I feel like we're not missing any holes and we're preparing our kids to like really work hard at their schoolwork versus just feeling like, okay, this is super easy, we're just done with it. But I also like to reduce the amount of books that Memoria Press does, only because 1, I want to allow them time to free read whatever they want. 2, I also like to use these guides. So I'm going to show you the teacher guide for Tom Sawyer, for example, but like there's a lot of content for each chapter in these books, and sometimes there's enrichment at the bottom and it says like skip some of the questions or skip some of the enrichment if you don't have time. I would rather focus more on each book and get it thoroughly kind of read and dissected versus just reading more and more books and just skipping things. That's just kind of how I would rather do things, a little bit slower. So for us, we are doing, as I said, we're going to continue with Memoria Press, and I love their literature guides. We have never deviated from their literature guides. The only thing that we have done is kind of mixed and matched versus using like, okay, their set curriculum and saying, these are the books we're going to read this year. We've said, okay, well, do you really want to read that book this year? Because there's another option. So if you go on their website, you need to understand that like their curriculum guide is going to have certain books, but they also have literature guides to books that are not within their curriculum guides. There's other books that they offer. So make sure that you select your kid's grade level. And if they're like, I really don't want to read that book, maybe there's another one that they're more interested in for that grade level, and kind of you can mix and match. So we obviously we're going to do the Trojan War. She's not super excited about this one, but I feel like what I have read is this is a really good kind of preparation for reading like the Iliad and the Odyssey. And so I think she'll like it more than she thinks that she will, but this is our first one that we're going to do. So we are going to do that. I have also read a lot of really good things about the Bronze Bow, and so we will be doing that. And here's the book. I've heard really good things about this book. Sorry, I have this massive reflection here. So we decided to continue with that. So then it was like, okay, what are we going to fill in instead of kind of the others? And that's where there weren't a lot of options really that were what I felt like great for 7th grade. As you go up, there's some better ones. As you go down, there's some better ones. So there weren't a lot that she was like super excited about reading without like jumping up a level, which I didn't want to do, specifically with these already being, pretty big, and they had pretty big literature guides. So what we did decide to do, we wanted to add one. It is a little bit of a jump up, but it's The Adventures of Tom Sawyer. She chose this one over Little Women because she's just she really loves comedy and adventure, and she's just not a big it just talks about what they're doing. Like, my daughter has never been a fan and was never a fan of any of the Little House of the Prairie books, which are kind of required reading early on. And I remember after reading like 2 of them, because we read like Little House in the Big Woods and then we read Farmer Boy, and she's like, these books are so boring. She told me this is all about them making cheese and like doing stuff on the farm. And I'm like, well, yeah, like for me, I thought they were kind of interesting, but she's just wants more adventure and more things like that. Now, she's not a big, what's funny is that she's also not a big like fantasy reader. She will read fantasy if I require it of her, but she really does like more like mysteries and stuff. So we'll see how she kind of takes to this, because it's not really like a fantasy book. It's not make-believe. It's not like war. It's more about like adventure and his life and his antics, which can be kind of funny. So I'm hoping that she really does like this. So that's what we're doing for literature. We're kind of, as I said, mixing and matching. Now we are going back to one of the things we never did with Memoria Press was their classical studies. So this is going to be kind of a deviation because of the fact that we never did like Famous Men of Rome. And I think there was another one, Famous Men of, there's 2 or 3 famous men. We never did any of those. We never did the Delaris book of Greek myths. We attempted it, but we had so many other things going on and I just really felt super overwhelmed by it. So we just dropped it, which I'll go into in a little bit later. But we have decided to just jump in because it's not chronological, and we are going to be doing the famous men of Greece. So this is the actual book here, I believe. Yes, this is the book. So it's an illustrated, colorful book to read. And then this is your student guide. And you know, what I've read, and one of the things I've taken away from some of the listening is like, you can do as little or as much of this as you want to do. You can also have them do it, not just like have them fill it in as they're reading. You know, it's just to help them comprehend. You can do as little or as much as you want. For us, this is going to be kind of a supplement, and so that she can learn a little bit about the famous men of Greece. So then another book, this is again why we were very kind of cautious on like not adding 4 books. Notice that because they had like 4 books, I believe, in their literature. Anne of Green Gables, The Bronze Bow, The Hobbit, The Trojan War, and we decided to cut that down by 1. Because there's also in the classical studies, you're going to be reading this Horatius at the Bridge. One of the things that Memoria Press does is, see this little medal here? If you memorize this and you send in a recording, there's like a medal that they will send you for doing this. My daughter does like those kind of challenges, so we may attempt to do this. So this is part of their classical studies. Another thing that if you go on their website for 7th grade, Greek alphabet is kind of part of their classical studies. We don't need to do that. We won't be doing that. We'll be continuing with the second half of first form Greek because obviously she already knows the alphabet. She's been doing it for 3 years. Math, we've never done Memoria Press math. We will not be doing Memoria Press math. For math, we will be doing, I think, we haven't quite decided yet. We did Saxon this year, Saxon 8, 7. And so going into 7th grade, we're kind of in a situation where we go, do we go into pre-algebra or do we go into algebra? Like Shoreman math, which we're considering doing, says that if you've done 8-7 with all the drills and you've gotten like 80% and above, you can go straight into their algebra program, but she'll only be in 7th grade. So we're still kind of debating whether we want to do that or if we want to just do another year of pre-algebra just to make sure that everything is very solidified. Okay. Science. Now, see, I know this is like, sounds like we're going back to Memoria Press, but we're not doing their this. We're not doing their this. We're not doing their this. And again, because we bounced around so much, we're not like super set on everything that they do. But again, going back to the classical studies, going back to really sticking with the literature, really doing that full program, that's really where I'm going back. Not necessarily meaning like everything. So science is an area where I think a lot of people found Memoria Press to be lacking. And I think it depends on your kid, of course, if they're really into science and they're really wanting to go forward with it. So like this year is supposed to be the Book of Trees and exploring the world of biology, which supposedly is more about the history of biology, the more I did research on it. We did anatomy through Apologia, and we've done botany in the past. And I I really asked Noelle what she wanted to study, and she really wanted to study like physics or chemistry. She's been wanting to do that for a while. So we actually decided to do, and this comes in a little bit later at Memoria Press, but when you look online, it is a 7th grade curriculum, a 7th and 8th grade curriculum. So we are going to, and I did buy this from Memoria Press. Memoria Press does offer this as one of their sciences, and I think it's in 8th grade they start it, but is this physical science, the Novaire physical science. So we will be doing this. I hear it is relatively intense. So, I mean, Noelle looked through it and was like, wow, there's a lot of math in here. And I'm like, well, yeah, because science includes math, but it looks pretty hefty and intense. So we will see how much of this we get through. If this goes through next year, I'm really not concerned, because really like the sciences that you really have to get through are really start in like high school, you know, when you have to get through certain sciences each year. So I'm not super concerned if we take 2 years to get through this. So we're doing that instead of whatever the science is that they particularly chose for Memoria Press, but it is still a Memoria Press curriculum. So we are continuing with their classical composition. We had done IEW for 2 years, and we had deviated obviously from Memoria Press's system. And I don't necessarily dog on that. I actually think it was a really good idea to do at least 1 year of IEW, because you kind of learn a lot of these rules and a lot of these things that you can add in, but it did become too restrictive for my child later on, where it was just like, I'm trying to get these clauses, and I'm trying to get these ly adverbs, and I'm trying to get all this stuff. And now I'm not actually paying attention to, does this paragraph even sound good? Because I'm just trying to get the stuff in. Whereas the classical composition definitely adds a lot more freedom, in my opinion, to that. And I know there's a lot of variations. Some people really like the Memoria Press one. Some people like the writing and rhetoric, which is also classical. Now, because this is one of our problems, because we deviated from Memoria Press originally on, we are behind in classical composition. So this last year, we did fable and narrative together in the same year, because Memoria Press had a specific way to do that, but she still was behind a year, because they started that, it's like a 5th, 6th, I think it's like 4th, 5th or something, and 6th. So she should have done the one that she's doing here. She should be doing this. She should have done this year, but we're doing it in 7th. And it's really because they want you to go through every single level. It doesn't matter when you start. You can go through it faster or slower depending on your age. So we are doing their classical composition number 3. It is much bigger, and there's videos online, which she really loves. They're on their streaming app, which we love. So she just follows along and does the lesson for it. It's not the Memoria Press Academy. That's like where they'll grade everything. It's like a legitimate online class, but this does have like videos, and she can go through and kind of do it. And then obviously I'm grading her final papers and all that kind of stuff. So I really do like this. We're going to continue with this, and then and just keep going up one at a time. So we still, I think, should be able to finish most of them, if not all of them, before we kind of pivot into like high school composition, where there's going to be papers and different things. So we are also going to do Memoria Press's kind of history. This is an area we have deviated year after year after year. I have tried so many history programs. I really have hated them all. I will be honest. I have hated them all. This last year we decided to do, oh my goodness, we decided to do Not Grass. And let me just tell you, if you do Not Grass, I think you just need to understand that history is going to be a big chunk of your day. It is a lot of reading, and we decided to do you just looking at the textbook itself, you can see it's a lot of reading. There are 2 giant textbooks, depending on what subject you get. And it is meant to be done almost every single day. So we had done the U.S. government one. That's what she wanted to do. I can't remember what it's called now. Let's see if I look back here. Maybe I can even find it. Not Grass, Uncle Sam and Me. We went through one book. And then I was like, she was bored. It was a lot. She just really didn't like it. And I was like, you know what? We're done. So we were kind of behind in our cycle anyway of like getting through history. We didn't have Reformation. The Reformation and Renaissance was kind of missing before kind of going into modern period. So I decided to just go and look at our Homeschool in the Woods lap book that I had purchased, a Reformation and Renaissance one last year. And it has lessons in it, it has activities in it, and that is what we're going to use kind of for the remainder of the year. We're going to do probably 2 lessons a week and just finish that off, and then we'll be able to kind of go into like the exploration age and modern day next year. So banking on that, we're kind of doing, even though this year was US government, it's also Renaissance and Reformation. So next year we are doing exactly what Memoria Press has you doing in 7th grade. Now, I noticed one thing that Memoria Press does is I think they integrate American Studies, it seems like almost every year. And I didn't see a benefit of that when I was first starting out, because I was so enthralled with the idea of doing like the classical method of going like ancients to modern, ancients to modern. But when I started thinking about it, I was like, yes, that's great. There's always going to be holes though in how you learn history. And the facts that I know the most about are the things that I see and hear about regularly. American history is so important to somebody who lives in America. And I know a lot of the things that she's learned about medieval history and world history, all interesting, and the things that are specifically the things that are like ancient Egypt and stuff that happen around the early church, all of, and like before Jesus, like all of that's very, very important for understanding the Bible. But like medieval history, for example, while it's good to know, and while I'm sure I learned a lot of that, I don't remember most of it. So like, what do I remember mostly about is American history. And that's the stuff I'm probably going to take with me unless I'm doing research on something. You know, we're just not going to remember every single thing that we learn. And it's like, I think sometimes, at least I get it in my head where I'm like, I just really want to like pound into my kid, it's all these facts, all the things. So they're like, look at all this stuff that I know. And like, you have a full understanding of history. And I'm like, in reality, I was homeschooled. I did a lot of history. They're going to forget it. They're going to, it's the matter of it. They're going to forget it. So I like the fact that they do incorporate American history, because I do think I need to focus more on that a little bit, because I think that it's super important to know American history since that's where we live. So let me just kind of break down what American history looks like. So they have the story of the 13 colonies in the Great Republic. That's going to be this book here, which is not in color. It's kind of black and white, kind of boring. And they have a student guide that goes with that. And if you look in here, it's very much the same as all their guides. You have facts to know, vocabulary words, and comprehension questions. Okay, now it's very difficult sometimes to know how to use these if you don't have their literature guide, because a lot of times it's not going to be like open and do this every single day. They will probably integrate it, just knowing how Memoria Press works, with the other things that are in the American Studies. So these two other things, I'm sure they will be integrating in with this, because let me just see how many chapters are even in this book. There's a lot of stuff in the back. Let's see. Let me just look. And I haven't looked through the literature guide yet. I'm sorry, the schedule, 32. So really you're probably going to do maybe one of these a week. That, you know, and then you'll be doing other things. So then you have this America History Outline, which you have the student book, and then you have the teacher key. And they do recommend Story of the World too. I already had Story of the World Volume 4. And if you're thinking about getting those books, you might want to get them now before they're updating them. And I would be very cautious with that author in the future. If you don't already know kind of the drama surrounding that, that's something you can look up. But anyway, this is really, really cool because it's basically like a timeline. It's an outline of just different, like John Brown's raid, you know, and then, you know, the first shot, the president's decision, the monitor, like it goes through this book. Like this is part of it. So like there's references on here to page numbers in here. So again, it's like a timeline that you're kind of like filling out as you go, at least based on what I'm looking at. And then this is a very interesting thing, kind of goes along with the whole classical method, 200 questions about American history. And it literally is just that. They're drill questions. There's the question, fill in the answer. And it's 200 questions. And it also references this book. So these are all things that are kind of going to sync up with that book. We are going back. Here's another one of those why we're going back to Memoria Press. We are going back to their English grammar. This is because I have a desire to get away from the well-trained mind as a publisher. And again, going back to Story of the World, going back to some of those things that I discussed. It's just where I choose to spend my money, where I choose to support. So we did the Well-Trained Mind Grammar this last year, their red book, and I've decided to switch back to Memoria Press for grammar. They do use this Houghton Mifflin, language arts thing, which is just kind of, I don't know, it's kind of fun. It's just like a page. And they do not, at least in prior grades that I've seen, they do not use every single lesson in here. You really have to use their guide that says like what day, what page to use from this, because they're not going to use everything in this book. And then you have their English recitations, grammar recitations, book number 4. And then they're going to get into some diagramming of sentences in here, which is nice. But honestly, I will say that I have really started to not care about diagramming sentences, which is probably another video. But diagramming sentences really only became popular in the early 20th century. Our founding fathers would not have known how to diagram a sentence. And I figure if they were, proficient in English grammar without diagramming sentences, my kids can probably learn without diagramming sentences. They like to diagram sentences, but I'm not so insistent as I used to be on wanting them to learn that skill, because in reality, I'm realizing it's not as important. Okay, another area where we had deviated in the past was Bible. And so Bible is an area where I probably will deviate. Actually, I know I will deviate in my younger grades. So we'll go into that in a little bit. But we have done the way that we did Bible. We had one apology as Old and New Testament. So because we had won that curriculum and it looked so neat, we did that during certain years when Memoria Press would have been doing Christian Studies 1 and 2. I feel like I don't really necessarily like Christian studies. I feel like it kind of can make Bible boring and not super applicable to my life or your life. That's just my personal opinion. So we had done that, but then we ended up in a very weird situation where then we did apologetics through master books, and kind of like Answers in Genesis type thing. And then this last year, we were really struggling to find a Bible curriculum, because Memoria Press last year would have been Christian Studies number 3, which would have been a continuation of like 1, 2, and 3. So she couldn't really jump in there. And so we were like, okay, what do we do? So we decided to do Foundations in Faith from Master Books, which is written by Israel Wayne. Very solid curriculum. I actually really did like it. Again, it's going to be a lot of days. You're going to be doing it every day, but it talks about missionary backgrounds, and it really digs into the early church and why we believe what we believe. And she did just fine as a 6th grader, even though I think it's written for a little bit higher than that. But just know and come in with, whatever expectations, come in with those expectations of like, I'm as a 6th grader doing something that could be a high school curriculum. But so this next year, trying to figure out what we were going to do, what are we going to do? And Christian Studies number 4 is on the Memoria Press schedule. Now, the interesting and unique thing about Christian Studies number 4 is this one is a very unique place to jump in, and it's great. It's great that this is the place to jump in. And the reason why is because Christian Studies number 4 is basically everything from Christian Studies 1 through 3 kind of summarized in a shorter fashion. So I think 1 and 2 are Old Testament, and I think 3 is new. Don't quote me on that, but it's something to that effect. Christian Studies 4 is going to be a chronological overview of the Bible. So it is going to be, and you can see it right in the beginning, it's going to be Old Testament. It has the Old Testament and the New Testament. And it's going to be basically an overview and like all the books. And you're going to go through basically. And so my goal this year had already been to see if we can just read through the whole Bible together, which is a lot. That's a lot to do in general, but I want to use this as kind of our guide to go through it. And so it just really worked out perfectly that we were just jumping in right here. And it actually works out really for geography as well, because this is a review year for geography for Memoria Press. And then next year is like the whole world. It like goes over the whole thing again. So we'll just do geography next year, even though we didn't do geography 1 and 2. So So again, we're in kind of a little weird area. Now, I don't think I'll do that with my younger daughter. We'll probably just do more straight across the board. Okay, so that is what we were doing for my 7th grader. Hopefully that was helpful to kind of see everything. And again, as I said, most of it is Memoria Press this year versus in prior years where we really deviated with like history and Bible and science, and like all of those, as you can see, Bible, history, and science, while they might not be the 7th grade one, they're all Memoria Press. I mean, really, we are not deviating from anything Memoria Press with my oldest this year. We're pretty much sticking straight to it. So pretty excited about that. Okay, so now let me jump into my 3rd grader. My 3rd grader is going to do more Memoria Press than my oldest one did in 3rd grade, with some caveats. So we will be continuing, and I don't have the teacher's guides out here right now because I need to dig them out. But we will continue with their traditional spelling. I really do love Memoria Press's spelling program. And there are some people who will sit there and they will talk about like, oh, I don't like it. It has so much busy work. It has so many different things. And I'm like, that is why I like it. Let me just tell you, you do not have to use all the things. With my oldest one, we did not use all the things. We did not use like all of the different repeats and all that. But for this daughter, she needs all that. So it was very helpful to have it all. And then if you don't need it, don't use it. I would rather have more than less when it comes to practice. So we'll be doing that. The one thing we will not be doing, big deviation, and this is huge for classical, and people will probably be like, that's not the classical method of education, but it is what it is. We will not be doing Latin. We did Prima Latina this year with my 2nd grader, and she did just fine with it. She did not take to it quite like her sister, but we are not and will not be doing Latin Christiana. She really does not want to learn Latin. She really does not like Latin. She really does not like languages to begin with. And her chosen language that she really wants to learn is Portuguese, which we have Rosetta Stone for because my family speaks Portuguese. And she's too young to learn Greek, even if she wanted to learn Greek. And so I am choosing not to make her learn Latin. And that's just the choice that we're making. But she will be hopefully learning some Portuguese. And that's just that. So we will be doing the English grammar recitation. Now, the difference between, so this is their English grammar recitation. Now, we did this with my oldest as well. The difference is there's an accelerated curriculum guide for 3rd grade. So if you're ordering Memoria Press, make sure you don't accidentally order the accelerated guide. We accidentally had received it when we first had ordered. And the difference is that they go through this in 1 year and they go through Latin Christiana in 1 year. The regular guide goes through this in 2 years, and it goes through Latin Christiana in 2 years. And my daughter, this 3rd grader, needs the 2 years because she's not the greatest at memorization. My oldest can see something and almost immediately memorize it. This one needs more practice. So it's going to be much better to go through these recitation rules and things like that slower and really memorize them versus feeling like we're rushing through them. So that's our English grammar recitation. They also have the core skills book, which again, they will be using part of and part of they won't be using. So I know because I've done it before, they don't use every single thing in here. So just don't, if you don't get the curriculum guide, maybe print out like the guide online to how to use it, because you don't want to be like making them do this every day when that's not what they require. Okay, so literature. So we will be doing in 3rd grade, we will be doing all the literature that they require, and we're going to do exactly as they say. So, and I will say this because last time, well, I say that, but then I also change it because we're going to be doing a little more than what they say if we have time. So when my oldest did this curriculum, we did Farmer Boy, Charlotte's Web. There was the poetry for the grammar stage, and then they had the bear named Paddington and Mr. Popper's Penguins. So that has changed now. And I debated on just buying, because you can still buy, you can absolutely go and still buy the student guides for those teachers' guides. So if I decided I didn't want to buy anything new because we already had it, I didn't have to. I absolutely could have just gone in and bought the new student guides, which is what I love. But they had switched it. They had switched the book to a new book called, and I don't actually have it here. Wait, I probably have it over here. Where is it? Let's see. Okay, I don't have it right here, but it's called The Moffats. And I watched just a little video on like why they chose that book, and it looks really fun. And instead of doing the Bear Named Paddington and Mr. Popper's Penguins, they combined them into The Moffats. So instead of doing 4 books, they're doing 3, plus the Poetry for Grammar Stage. And I will tell you that we did not do the Poetry for Grammar Stage with my oldest. We just did not have the time to do it. And so now I'm glad that we're seeing we're kind of decreasing to 3 books, and they were doing the poetry. Now, I did buy the Bear Named Paddington student guide just in case we get through reading really quickly and we're like, hey, I want to read this book. It's there. But Mr. Popper's Penguins is something that she can read. We have it. She doesn't have to do a student guide for it. She can just read it. I'm still glad that we have it. That's one of the things that I have always invested in. Also, I will tell you, up through even this grade, I've always invested in the read aloud books because it's been so nice to just build my library of good classic books that I will always have. If you're a library homeschool mom, that's awesome. I just have never been. I probably should do better about that, but I've never been a good library mom, and I'm glad that these books I've been able to use them now for 3 children. We've been able to just keep using them, which is great because their read alouds don't necessarily change as far as I can tell. They've changed some in and out. I've seen some that have become, that used to be things that you read, that they read, that have become now read alouds. So that's a little bit interesting. Like I've seen, oh, that's now a read aloud versus they am reading it. So anyway, so the books are, as I said, Farmer Boy, Charlotte's Web, The Moffats, and then poetry. And then we're going to do, for the first time ever, well, we had attempted with the before. We're going to be doing the Delaris Greek myths. I have the book, but I had actually so determined that we were not going to do this, I had even thrown the teacher's guide away with my oldest. I was like, we're not doing this. I'm just throwing it all away. So I had to buy the teacher's guide again. I did not have to buy the book though, because I felt like I don't want to throw away books. I always felt like, well, they could read them if they want to, if they're interested. So we are going to do this because I do think my oldest will find, my middle one will find this very interesting. So we're going to do this. And then if my oldest wants to like listen in, she can listen in on this as well. So we're doing that. We are not doing Christian studies though. Can you see a trend here with the Christian studies? We are doing Christian studies number 4 because it's an overview of the whole Bible. We are not doing Christian studies number 1, 2, or 3. And the reason why is because I really, really do love, and we're behind in it right now, but I do love the Answers in Genesis curriculum. And it does go from the Old Testament through the New Testament. But the thing that I love is they have videos, they have multiple grades, so I can teach my middle one and my youngest one at the same time. And I feel like the life application is just better. And it's really from like that Answers in Genesis kind of thought process and kind of apologetics process of saying like, hey, this is what the world is going to tell you, but this is what the Bible says. And I really, really, really love that. So we are going to continue with the Answers in Genesis curriculum that we're already using. And then maybe when we get to Christian Studies number 4, maybe we'll hop over here and do the whole reading of the Bible when we get to that grade age. Math, we are not doing the rod and staff math. We have never done it. And actually, I am deviating from the math. We did back in math this year for both my kindergartner and my second grader. We did it because I had it already for my oldest, but we will be deviating again in math and going back to the good and the beautiful. Yes, I know there's a lot of things about giving money to the good and beautiful, and I know I mentioned in this video not wanting to give money to certain things. I do understand that. But I know that I think that there are Christians that also work for the good and the beautiful, and it's just a choice that we've decided to make math easier, but we will eventually switch. In older grades, we will switch to Saxon. So that is the plan, to do the good and the beautiful up to a certain level, then switch to Saxon. And then if we like Shorman math in like older middle school grades, then do that. So, but that's where we're at on that. Science, and this is something that, again, I think I've said before, I'm not a fan of the younger grade sciences with Memoria Press. It's all just kind of floofy to me, like animals. It's mammals this year. My kids get a lot of like animal talk. They watch Wildcrats, obviously not a Christian program, but there's a lot of information about animals on there. They get a lot of that when they watch those things, and just not interested in doing that as part of our curriculum. So I asked my daughter, what science do you want to study? She actually chose the exact same science that my oldest daughter had chosen in the same exact grade. I don't know what that's about. So weird. But it is astronomy. And I already have astronomy. I have the Apologia Astronomy. We did it in 3rd grade with my oldest, and we'll just do it in 3rd grade with my middle. And this one is a little bit smaller than some of their other ones. So always check the grade, because Apologia it's not just like all grades for everything. But they have the activity book for this, which we'll get. The other thing that they're introducing this year that I'm really, really, really excited about is videos. Videos to go along with it. So I will probably be purchasing those, because my middle daughter is obsessed with anything that is technology. As much as I try to be like, no, we're not doing technology, she loves watching videos on things. So if they have that video component, there's a good chance she's going to watch it. She's going to learn it. So we are doing their intro to composition. So this was something that I don't believe existed when my oldest did 3rd grade through Memoria Press. I don't believe there was intro to composition, because I know it was like an IEW thing that they had us doing, like they're like fables or something like that. And we were just kind of like, I don't even know what this is about. I don't know how to do this. And it was kind of a weird thing, because 3rd grade is a little young to be writing. So Memoria Press now has introduction to composition. We bought that. We're going to do that. And then modern studies. So as again, I'm not deviating for this child as much. We're not going to just be like, you know what, we need to do ancient history. Let's start in the ancients. No, not doing it. Not going there. We'll learn ancient history when we learn ancient history. But we are going to do their modern studies, which is what they have, which I think is great. Now, she just did American history this year. So there's part of me that's like, okay, we just did American history. We can do American history again, and we're not doing any kind of like other history. But you know what? I'm just making my peace with it. I'm making my peace with it. You know what? She can learn ancient history later on. 3rd grade is not essential for her to be learning ancient history. It's just not. So one of the things that they're doing is they're doing states and capitals. That's what they're doing. And you know what? I think it's really great. They have this little workbook. And when I was younger, my mom actually made sheets up like this for me when I was homeschooled. And I did this as a science fair, like a homeschool fair project, where I made a whole book about like fun facts about the state, the nickname, the bird, like all that stuff. And now it's crazy to see it actually in a book and being prescribed as curriculum. I don't even think my oldest actually knows all the capitals to the states. So this will be very fun. I'm going to let them, they have these flashcards. They have the flashcards for the states. They're right here, states and capitals. So I'm going to have them kind of play with these cards, and I know that they will learn them. My oldest will probably learn them. And then there's also these U.S. presidents cards, which I believe these might be for the 7th grade stuff, but and they're actually very up to date, because I'm just now seeing this is Trump on the back with Vice President J.D. Vance. So I wonder if you can just like buy individual cards as you go along. Like, can I buy just the next card of this? That would be really funny and interesting. Like, you just make your own. So that's what we're doing for 3rd grade. We're pretty much sticking straight to it, except for Bible and except for science. Everything else is just Memoria Press, which is different, again, than I've done in the past. Because usually I feel the desire, and I have to fight it, but the desire to be like ancient history. We need to incorporate ancient history. And I'm not. I'm just letting it be delirious Greek myths. And that's not really ancient history, but it is what it is. Okay, so then 1st grade. Let's go into 1st grade. 1st grade, I'm not going to bring anything out, because if you want to know more about 1st grade, you can just look back to my prior videos on 1st grade, because I've definitely done them. 1st grade, we are doing the same things that we have done in the past. Traditional spelling, 1st grade. First start reading level E, we will try it. It was horrible for my middle child. She absolutely hated first start reading, because it wasn't about reading. It was about like, can you read these, and then can you spell the words that you saw like once? And she struggled with spelling, so she felt really not great about it. But she was able to read everything. It was just the spelling component and the dictation that she really struggled with. So if he struggles with that, I will chuck first start reading in the trash. I have no qualms. And then we're going to do Storytime Treasures, the same Storytime Treasures and more Storytime Treasures that we did with both of my others. And it's Little Bear, Frog and Toad Are Friend, Caps for Sale, Make Way for Ducklings, Billy and Blaze, Blaze and the Forest Fire, The Story of Ping, Keep the Lights Burning, Abby, Stone Suit, The Little House, Miss Rumphius. And then they had like Christmas in the Big Woods and some Christmas ones. We're going to do Good and the Beautiful Math, which I already talked about. We're going to do Cursive. We don't do their copybook, mainly because it's like Bible verses. They're all in King James, but we will do copy work. I will print them out in their own little cursive-y thing. And then that's it. Now we do the read alouds too. And we have a lot of read alouds. I will say that in third grade, you have the choice. In third grade, you have the choice between read alouds that are picture books and read alouds that are novels. I had chosen the novels the first time around, and I just didn't really feel like buying a whole new set of books. So I just decided we'll do those novels again, and we'll skip some of them because some of them were horrible, i.e. Mary Poppins. Ugh. I hated that book so much. So we will skip Mary Poppins, and I will probably incorporate my younger son in when we read, potentially. And then my younger son will also do all of the books that we already have for first grade read alouds, which are usually like picture books and stuff. So that will be great. That will be really, easy to keep using those same books as we go on. And but that's it. We are pretty much sticking to Memoria Press this year. I'm really excited. I even bought their curriculum guides, which I haven't done really in a couple years because we've deviated so much. But this year I bought the curriculum guides again because I felt like we're pretty much sticking to it. And I think it will also make our years, even though it seems like a lot, I think it will make our years easier because I find that when you piecemeal curriculum, you end up with curriculum that's very intense here, very intense here, very intense here, and then you shove them all together and you have a lot. Versus when you have a curriculum that's kind of all together, they're like, okay, this week we're going to be intense on this week we're going to be intense on this, and we're never going to get through this book, and we're only going to use this a little bit here and there, versus trying to do kind of like everything. And don't get me wrong, like Memoria Press, eventually we will deviate again with my oldest in the older grades. We will, because as you get older, they kind of drop off a lot of things, because I think they intend that, and I'm not 100% positive, I haven't heard this from them, but think they probably expect that you're reading on your own, one. And two, they probably expect that as a high schooler, you may be taking classes that are outside of the homeschool curriculum. Maybe they don't assume that. I don't know. But I know that like I did dual enrollment in high school. And I do hope that my kids will do some dual enrollment to get some college credit out of the way if that's what they intend to do. But even if they don't intend to do that, it still may be beneficial to just get college credit and high school credit at the same time, especially with some of the sciences and those kind of things as we get into high school. But we are just now going into 7th grade. So I'm trying to kind of put that on the back burner in my mind and not think about it. So this video was long, but I wanted to get all 3 grades kind of into one so you can kind of see what we're doing. I'm super excited about it. We have all these different flashcards and things. We have the Greek flashcards. We have the timeline flashcards. Famous men of Greece. 200 questions about American history. So we'll have those kind of rotating through our whole system here. And I'm really excited to see how it goes. So thanks for being here for this video, and I'll see you next time.